Hey, what's going on guys, it's Chum here, and today I'm here to ask the question, is Empire of Scarlet worth buying? Now, as you guys may know, this is the latest mini box released in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, or at least the time of this video, and here I'm just going to evaluate exactly what's good in this box, and whether or not it's worth investing your money and or gems into this box. So, we're going to cover a few things. First of all, we're going to be talking about the different archetypes that have been, released or updated in this box, as well as what good staples there might be in this box that are worth, investing gems in that could be helpful in any other deck. So let's start off and talk about the cover card and its archetype, the Vampire archetype. So the first card we get is Vampire Scarlet Scourge, and this guy's a pretty powerful monster. He's a 6-star dark zombie monster, and when he destroys a monster by battle, at the end of the battle phase, you get to special summon as many monsters as he destroyed to your side of the field from your opponent's graveyard. So very, very cool effect. I absolutely love this monster, and I think he is super awesome. However, the rest of the support doesn't really fall in line with him. You get a few other cards, such as Vampire Kingdom, Vampire Vamp, and even some other, vampire-based cards. Big ones are things like Vampire Retainer and Vampire Familiar. Now, these cards are actually really good, and they give a lot of synergy to the Vampire archetype. And if you guys aren't aware, Vampire Kingdom has a really cool effect in which when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, you can send one of your dark vampire monsters from your hand or deck to the graveyard and destroy one card in the field, which is actually a really, really powerful effect, and I think it's a really awesome effect. And then of course using stuff like Vampire Retainer, who when special summoned lets you pay 500 life points to search for a vampire spell or trap, and Vampire Familiar, who when he's special summoned by paying 500 life points, you can add one vampire monster from your deck to your hand. These two cards are really useful, especially since they have an effect to special summon themselves from the graveyard, so you get them in there, special summon them by their effect, and then pay the 500 for the search. It adds a lot of consistency and a lot of power to the vampire decks. However, there's one major drawback, and that's the fact that first of all, the main boss monster has no effect that lets you trigger Vampire Kingdom, and while he's pretty powerful, especially with the Vampire Kingdom's 500 attack boost, 2700 isn't the biggest monster in the field, and you're going to have a lot of trouble getting over certain cards, and if he can't, let you trigger off the destruction effect of Vampire Kingdom, it's going to be difficult to get over anything really powerful, say 28 or above. Now, beyond the boss monster not having the best effect to trigger a Vampire Kingdom, we do have other vampires from previous, events or previous boxes that will help you out with this, but the problem is, again, these cards come from other places. So if you haven't already got your hands on the vampire cards that came in Crimson Kingdom, you're going to have a very hard time building this deck. Very expensive cards from Crimson Kingdom, like Vampire Lord and Gozuki, are actually super important to run in this deck, or even something like Samurai Skull, which is similar to Gozuki, but a lot more easy to get your hands on. These cards are so useful because they let you send your Retainer or Familiar to the graveyard, thus allowing you to make those plays, but if you haven't already got these cards, this deck becomes very, very, very expensive to build, since Gozuki and Vampire Lord are both ultra rares from a main box, meaning they are 1 in 200 packs to pull. So, as much as I love the Vampire archetype, and as good as the support is, I think that it's not worth investing for vampires if you haven't already got the Crimson Kingdom cards. If you do already have the Crimson Kingdom cards at a decent quantity, it's worth spending about 5,000 gems on this box to try and get the cards that you need to buff your vampires, but if you haven't already got those cards, it is going to be way too expensive for you to actually build this deck, and the payoff isn't that great. While vampires are fun and powerful, they're definitely not anything crazy that it's going to get you to King of Games. Now moving on to the next archetype, we have Insectors. Now this is a very powerful archetype, focusing on insects that can equip to each other to give each other effects. Now, this archetype is known to be very powerful in the TCG, and it is actually quite powerful in Duel Links as well. However, it's missing some of its most important support. We do have things like Insector Centipede and Insector Gigamantis, and these two are very powerful cards. However, the problem is that we're missing their very, very powerful monsters like Insector Hornet. Now, this card is kind of what makes the deck really powerful, and what we have right now, while it can achieve some great things, I feel as though using Insectors at this current time, you're not going to get too far. You can do very powerful stuff like, equip and dequip to have a monster attack directly, you can equip to boost the levels of certain monsters, allowing them to use beatdown, and there are so many different things that you can do with these amazingly powerful cards. However, because we're missing some of the most important support, I think this deck is probably not worth investing on this box just yet. Maybe hold out to see if we do get the rest of the Insector support, and when we do, come back and pick up these Insector cards because they will be super useful. But as it stands right now, the Insectors are not powerful enough to be worth the amount of gems it would cost to build the full-fledged deck. Now moving on to one of the other archetypes we have buffed in this set, we have the Monarchs. And in this set, we're given Zarborg, the Thunder Monarch, and we're also given a support card for this Monarch, Mithra, the Thunder Vassal. Now, these two cards actually work really well. Mithra can special summon herself and give your opponent a token, and when you do that, of course, you're able to then tribute her and use your normal summon to special summon a Monarch monster. And of course, if you do special summon Zarborg, you're actually able to use this effect to show that token and then hopefully go for a direct attack. It's a very powerful combo, and these cards are really incredible. However, I feel like if you don't have any other Monarch support, like say Thestalos or the Earth Monarch, you're going to have a hard time really making a very powerful Monarch deck. Not to mention, it's 2 super rares from a main box, and these are 2 super rares you're going to want at 3 in your deck. It's going to be very expensive to build. Now, really quickly, I want to talk about a few other archetype buffs that we've been given in this box. Some archetypes like Elemental Heroes and Naturia have gotten a few buffs, but these cards are actually only normals and rares in the box. So if you do want to pick up these cards, feel free to throw 500 to 1,000 gems at this box to hopefully pick up these cards. But overall, I don't think any of the support is actually a game changer for any of the other kind of low rarity archetypes in this box. But of course, feel free to use your gems how you see fit. Now moving on to some of our more generic support cards, we have stuff like Bashing Shield, a very powerful equip card that you can equip to any normal summoned or set monster, which in these days in Duel Links is a lot of them, and you gain 1,000 attack and you take no battle damage from attacks involved with this card. Now, this card is actually really useful, and I can see various situations in which it is going to help you out. Like, imagine equipping this to an Amazoness monster in an Amazoness deck, get a lot more attack, and you take no battle damage, so your major weakness of, being able to be attacked over for damage is gone. And you're already so much more powerful, so you take less damage when you're attacking if, of course, you don't have Holy Guard. So, I think Bashing Shield is a very good card. I wouldn't say it's worth investing in this box for. It's something crazy like Forbidden Chalice or Treacherous Trap Hole, but it's still a decent card. Another good tech card we have here is Flash of the Forbidden Spell. This card is actually super cool. Activate only when all of your opponent's monster zones are occupied by monsters, and then destroy all monsters in your opponent's side of the field. Now, this card is actually pretty useful in this current day and age. We have decks like Fahires and Amazonas, which love to flood the field, and if you just simply drop one of these, or even against Gigias, you can wipe out their entire board and really set them back. Now, the main problem is, this doesn't work against every single deck, and I feel like as a counter card, while it's very powerful, there are going to be situations where it's useless, and if Duel Links had a side deck function in the game, then yes, this card would be amazing, but because we don't, it's really not that great of a staple. But I mean, if you're going into a tournament situation, you might want to have this card if you know you're going up against certain archetypes, but if you go up against Mars Heroes, this card is basically dead. They don't feel their field very often. Now moving on over to the last major tech card I see in this deck, we have Interplanetary Purpley Thorny Dragon. Yes, an incredible name that you can barely read on the card art in the video or in the picture. And this card's actually quite impressive. If a monster you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. And this card is a 2200 attack monster which can be summoned for free. Honestly, I think it's a really incredible card, and if you have one, it's fun to use. However, I don't think it's actually going to be make or break for any decks. Like I said, it's fun to use, very useful. I mean, destruction by battle and card effect happen almost all the time, unless you're versing spellbooks and you get hit by Spellbook of Fate. Otherwise, it's actually going to pop off this effect and let you special summon this monster. But as much as I love this monster, as powerful as I think it is, I don't think it's worth investing gems on this card alone, because while it can be used in pretty much any deck, I don't think, as I said, it's going to be make or break for the deck and really push it over that edge to make it a little more competitive. Now guys, with that all said and done, I have to say I don't think Empire of Scarlet is worth your gems. As I'm sure many of you guys can see as I've been clicking on these cards, I do have a few copies of most of these cards. In fact, I basically opened a whole box. I think I opened 98 packs of the box before I got one copy of each super and ultra rare. And I have to say I did get a bunch of really fun cards out of this box, and I'm really excited to try it in Zectors and, the new buffed vampires. However, if you're really conscious of your gems and only want to spend them on very specific things or very powerful archetypes, I don't think this is the box for you. While vampires got some buffs, you're going to need the ult support, which can cost a lot of gems and or money. While Inzectors are also really fun, they're missing some of the support that might come in the future, might not, thus making them a very kind of, tier 3, tier 4 kind of deck. And the staple cards in this box, while they are very nice and they have their uses, they're really not worth investing your gems on. The Bashing Shield is, just too random and generic. It's not really going to push any deck over the edge. Same with Purpley Thorny Dragon. And while Flash of the Forbidden Spell is a very powerful spell card that can really counter a lot of decks, you're not really going to see that much use of it, and it's not really going to be a staple in your deck, but rather a side deck card, which you don't really see being used in Duel Links. Either way, guys, that's going to wrap up my breakdown of the Empire of Scarlet mini box and whether or not you should invest your gems and or money into it. Like I said, the box is really fun, has some great support, but if you're looking for something very serious, this isn't the box for you. Either way guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, and of course, if you guys want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links related videos, including PvP duels using the decks from this box, as well as some other really fun stuff, including various duel challenges and various helpful information for upcoming events, make sure to hit that subscribe button also, because all sorts of Duel Links videos will be coming very soon. Either way, I want to thank you for watching, hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.